Hey folks, welcome to Transplant Over today. My name is Jim Merle. I'm going to be answering a question today from a great friend of mine over on Facebook, a viewer of the program. Her name is Lynn Ellis. Now basically her question is all about how concerned she ought to be when she gets her transplant, so post-transplant, concerning catching cold, flus, viruses, bugs, whatever, from people around her, particularly her children, some of which are younger and in daycare. Now, basically, in a nutshell, I'm with you, Lynn. We need to be worried about those types of things pre-transplant so that we'll be more prepared post-transplant to actually deal with them. And there's no doubt in my mind, because post-transplant we are put on immunosuppressant drugs, there is a higher likelihood, really a high potential for catching all of those things, the flus, colds, viruses, the bugs, whatever, the things you really don't want and need. And I'm advised on a number of programs to be extremely cautious about those things, basically because what seemingly is no big deal to the next guy can put you in the hospital, okay? So even the little things, and I've been there, done that, been in the hospital several times within the last few years, all as a result of something that should have been minor, should have not even have been a big deal. But things can turn bad fast and we can land ourselves in trouble. But with that said, concerning your specific question about being around and how to, help yourself out, especially being around small kids, I can speak about that with experience. As well as many of you know, I should say, I've got 5 children aging from ages 17 all the way down to age 3, the 3 bottom ones being 5, 4, and 3. And I tell you what, it has been a challenge the whole time to keep from prevent myself from getting some of those bugs. However, let me encourage you by reminding you of a few things. Number one, yes, you're immunosuppressed post-transplant, but at the same time, you're likely on some other medications or drugs that will actually help you not to get sick. For example, post-transplant, a lot of times, not all, but a lot of times they'll put you on a particular drug called Valcite. Now that is an antiviral drug. They cover a wide range of potential viruses with that, particularly CMV, which most of you are going to receive a CMV positive donor. And if you happen to be CMV negative, it could cause a problem. And I've got other videos explaining CMV. If you don't know what it is, I'll link them up here in the corners and in the description below. But anyway, that's just an example. That Valcite or antiviral drug is a wonderful drug that you're going to be taking probably on a regular basis for at least the first few months, maybe up to a year. And it is great for preventing pretty much all things virus, okay? And that would include the dreaded stomach bug, which tends to go around here in the South a couple of times a year. It would also include, to an extent, now don't misquote me on this, it would also include to an extent things like the flu virus. Now, you still need to check with your team about potentially getting a flu shot. They may very well recommend that as well, but the Valcite's kind of a general antiviral drug that's going to help you out. In addition to that, many of us are placed on various and different antibiotics post-transplant that help with the healing process. Again, help to provide kind of a artificial type immune system for us when they have our real immune system kind of beat down. Things like Bactrim is one of those most common antibiotics that you may be placed on post-transplant. Again, you'll have that on board, so within the first 6 months, year, that may be a help or a tool as well, as far as you just not catching everything that comes your way. But as far as actually helping yourself, the very best things you can do are either to mask up, glove up, and wash up. And that's kind of the order. I always say that. There are certain times of year, particularly during flu season, when it's going to be best for us to wear a mask. Now, some would argue that masks are not the most effective way of preventing germs from getting in. I happen to promote and use the VOG mask, which, by the way, if you want to comment below this video, I'll give away a couple of those VOG masks at the end. Just comment below the video. Let me know whether you want to be a small, medium, or large VOG mask, and I'll put you in a drawing. Go ahead and do that in the next few days. But, I like to mask up, particularly in flu season, particularly in public places. Now, that's not the best or the end all of everything. Certainly better than that. It's just basically, like I just mentioned, maybe there are times when you might even have to go to the extreme and glove up. And I do this particularly in my home with small children. I have small children. They were even smaller when I was fresh out of transplant. So things like changing diapers, wiping snotty noses, that sort of thing. You kind of have to do, you don't want to do. a lot of times we kept actual medical gloves around the house. I just slip on one of those medical gloves, go ahead and do the dastardly deed I had to do, pop the gloves off, throw them in the garbage along with a diaper or whatever. You know, there are situations we get into, say maybe cleaning around the house, particularly cleaning in the bathroom. You need to be kind of gloving up after, you know, after transplant. Use that as your access. And then the last one there, washing up, definitely a biggie, okay? Staying clean, and that includes your hands, it includes your face particularly, it includes your mouth, and brushing your teeth on a regular basis, that sort of thing. Those things can really help, and that is the biggest preventative of catching anything, okay? And making sure that you keep your body clean, that is especially great. But here's where really the next level comes in for me, and it's a practice I've really been committed to now for about 6 years post-transplant. Again, with my 5 children, I have to be, when they go out to school, particularly to school or daycare, which my smaller ones do, when they get home immediately, they know what to do. They take those clothes off, strip down, whatever, go and take a shower, bath, whatever's appropriate most of the time, but all the time they change their clothes. They take those clothes straight to the washing machine, go ahead and drop them in. We've got an afternoon load that goes most days, or more than not, that is strictly for washing those school clothes before those germs go any farther, okay? And the reason I got into that practice is my son or daughter, the older ones, would come home and they would, you know, mill around the house for a little bit, eat a snack, turn on the television, whatever, and then somebody would inevitably say, oh, Johnny threw up at school today. No, we're not going to have that. Get your clothes off, go get a shower, you know, let's get this out of here. And I do the same thing with my young children. You know, when they come into the house, we make sure that, especially again during those high risk seasons, those clothes are removed. Those are school clothes. We take those off, change them into something else, make sure that evening and before we go to bed they're really bathed up and ready to go. We just take those extra precautions. So I would say above everything, keep in mind that you do have some medications on board, at least for a while post-transplant, that could help, the antivirals, antibacterials, as well as the fact of making sure that you yourself are clean, and in light of this question, particularly that your children are clean when coming in to the house. The only thing I would add in addition to that is, you know, don't be afraid to tell a friend, a family member, whoever that's wanting to come into the house, you know, wanting to stop by for a visit. If they've got any symptoms whatsoever of anything, even if they claim it's the old-fashioned sinus infection or whatever, stay away. Not right now. It's not a good day. Oop, hold up a minute, I almost forgot. If any of my family members, particularly my children, end up actually having the flu or being diagnosed positively with the flu, more times than not, my team will actually go ahead and call me in Tamiflu as a preventative measure. Now, your team may be totally different, but I appreciate the fact that mine does that, so maybe that might be the last tip that'll really help you out. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got several videos kind of related to this. I'll try to put some of them up on the cards beside me here in just a moment. Maybe some other videos that might just entertain you, whatever. But I appreciate you joining me today. If you're not already a subscriber, today is the perfect day to go ahead and do that. Hit the Be Subscribe button as well as the bell notification all beside that. And I'll do my best to provide you with content which I hope will help to advocate, educate, and motivate you as a fellow transplant patient. Thank you so much again. Until next time, stay stronger, friends.